Recording. Welcome to another test wizardry session. Today we are going to build out some more pages so we can at least navigate around the different shops in Diagon Alley. And then we're going to explore using cookies to track and store information like your player name and other information and any items that you purchase in Diagon Alley. Although we probably won't get to the point of being able to purchase items. So let's go ahead and start again. I'll start every session with a clean system to make sure that that I'm not missing anything. So github.com test wizardry, and we've got the test wizardry game. I'll paste that into the Slack for those who want to follow along, or not the Slack, into the Zoom chat. And again, we'll check this out. And this will keep me honest. Although I may end up doing some things like adding content like text and styling as we go along in between days, just to kind of speed things up. I haven't done that yet. But I'll go to my temp directory. And I'm actually going to remove my test wizardry game directory. Pretty confident I didn't have anything I didn't commit, but we'll see if I broke anything. Git clone this URL, the test wizardry game, starting with it fresh, and then change to that directory. And first thing I want to do is I want to open my Visual Studio Code editor, and you can see we've got our different files in here. We're going to do a little cleanup here, move the images into the images directory. And well, I think I did that. Yeah, I do have the images and the fonts, or at least the Lumos font. So we might not have to do too much cleanup there. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start my live server. And if you don't have a live server, you can do npm install. If you have Node.js, live-server. And this will just say it's already installed. And I'm going through the beginning parts of each session so that people can, with relative ease, watch an individual video, on YouTube later, and say they pop in on, session 3 or 7 or whatever. They can see the basic steps to get started. If they don't know how to get to that point, there may be a few things they need to learn. Like, we're not going to go over reinstalling Node.js or a Git client every single time. But anyway, what this should have done is it should have said it's already installed. But it looks like it's trying to do some validation. All right. Anyway, so we've got live server. I didn't install it globally again. That was my mistake. And I do dot for the current directory. And then it launches up again here, 127.0.0.1. That's the local host. Port 8080, that's the default. And here's the page as we left it. Join us as we build and play an adventure game based on Harry Potter. Apply to Hogwarts. We'll click here. We've got our heading. What is your name? Let's test this out. Harry Potter is a 11-year-old male. And your owl flutters off with the application clutched in its talons. It says, "You're a wizard, Harry. And congratulations, you've been accepted to Hogwarts." And then the text here of our message. So we could probably make this a little more user-friendly. But like I said, what I want to get to is I want to get past this point and start creating Diagon Alley. So let's go ahead and open up our the accepted URL. Yeah, just accepted. And so we've got here this pre-formatted text. What we'd like to do is we'd like to have that in a nice formatted style. So what we can do is, rather than just having it pre-formatted, we can, for instance, give this a style and then font family. what is it? It's E.B. Garamond, I think. All right, so that is that's not the right font. Let's try something different. We'll try Lumos. All right, we don't want that. We want the Garamond font. So let's check what it's looking like on other pages. Apply now. So it's not recognizing my font here. Oh, well, it's not on this page. We're not including anything on the accepted page. So what we need to do is we need to go to our index page and borrow this stuff. So the link to the Google Fonts and our style sheet, we'll add it here in our accepted page as well. Now, when you use a JavaScript application, congratulations, you've been accepted. Okay, so now we've got the right font here. And we can do other things. We want to, let's go ahead and give it a border. And then we want to give it a max width of, let's say, about 65 characters. Then we probably want a padding here. And let's make it a bigger font as well. Too relative. Oh, that's a little bit too big. All right, that's, oh, because we're using pre-formatted, it's going outside our area of box. So we actually want to change this from a pre to a div. And then we'll create paragraphs for each section. This editor wants to help me out, but it's doing more harm than good. All right, so we're getting close. Get their formatting in here better. Oops. This is the really boring part here. Okay. We don't want this centered though. We want this left aligned, right? So we can, we've got a lot of stuff going on here. That's pretty good. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to take all of this styling out of the text here and put it in our style sheet. So just to make this cleaner, and we'll give this div a class. Now a class is a type for styling. It's a way to organize things. So this, what we want to call this is, we want to call this we'll call this just letter for now. We might call it a Hogwarts acceptance letter. Now it has no styling, and you can see it's back to this. But what we'll do is we'll open up our style sheet, and our editor links to that, and we can do div.letter. This means that's a div element, and it's of type or of class letter. So the dot means class, in a cascading style sheet. And then we're going to paste all these things that we put in here and make them a little easier to follow rather than cluttering up our HTML document. All right, and that looks pretty good. I think I'm going to give this a bigger padding. And now we can do an absolute size or a relative size on these things. 10 pixels is an absolute size. That's always going to be 10 pixels. But one relative M or EM is, roughly the width of one character, an M, based on this font size. So if you look here, if we've got an M here, now this isn't exact, but the width of this M square is about the width of this padding. Let's make that a little bit more. There we go. I kind of like how our letter's looking. What'd be cool is rather than just having a straight border, if we had a graphic that made it look like a scroll and it had a little curly at the top and bottom and ragged lines on the side. But I'm not a graphic designer. I do welcome if anyone has those skills or is able to find some images that we can add. For instance, it'd be kind of cool to have a picture of an owl like Hedwig on this picture on this screen as well, so that when you get your acceptance letter, it shows the owl arriving and gives you just a little bit of a visual, I don't know, feature. A little bit of feedback that'll make this game more fun. So what I do is encourage people who are working along with me or who just want to contribute in that way. If you have images that you found that are of course copyright free, that we can then embellish our website with graphics. We're not going to have any animations or video game aspects. This is going to be essentially a text adventure game, but whether we're using, some fonts that might look reminiscent of the font used, for instance, in the movie or on the book cover, or whether we have some images or some coloring to style this so that it's more interesting visually. I appreciate any help or feedback, and you can just do that by either in the Slack, or I'm also willing to accept pull requests into the GitHub repository. And of course, direct messages from email or whatever are fine as well. Anyway, so we've got our letter formatted a little bit more. What we need to do now is go on to our next step, which is to get to our next page. How are we going to get to our next page? Well, let's just let's create a link for now. So in my initial text console adventure, I had some text, and I really need to get my text out and figure out, but it said something like, but there's no time to celebrate. It's off to Diagon Alley to fetch your school supplies. So that's what we've got here. Uh-oh. Hope I pasted to fetch your school supplies in the chat window. All right, and so then we want to create another link. And we've got an A, we want this class of button, because it's really just a link. We don't want to use a button which interacts with a form if we don't have to. A form is for collecting data. A button as part of a form is perfectly fine. But when we just want a link, we can make a link, which is normally just some underlying text, look like a button, and we'll do that. Like I say, I'm totally welcome. I totally welcome feedback to help make this better. So what do we got? We've got congratulations, you've been accepted to Hogwarts. I think what we want to do is we want to have on all of our pages a max width. right? So this is okay on here because there's hardly any text and it's centered. We click on apply now and it's left aligned. So let's both make everything centered, but also on the left side of the page. So what we want to do is we want to center everything on the left so that, for instance, our text is over our button. And how did we do that on our page? Oh, it has, so by default, all divs are text align center. We don't want that. We want we just want to have a class called centered. That's text align center. And this is where it gets tricky. I've got a whole bunch of pages I need to test now. Let's see, we've got our, let's line these up. We've got our home page, we've got our apply page, we've got our accepted page and our rejected page. Let's ignore the rejected. Well, let's not ignore the rejected page. We'll bring it up. We need to have a consistent styling across all these pages. And so what we'll do, we need to add these 3 lines for our fonts, our style sheet, and everything else. Okay, so apply. Oh, this apply page doesn't have the font. And our index page. Let's order these, right? So we've got index, apply, accepted, and rejected. Okay. When we want every page to have this meta to help with our visual display on mobile devices. Now you can see already I'm doing a lot of repetition. In this first phase, we're going to just deal with this repetition. But when we build this as a standalone app using a JavaScript framework, well, all of this content here, and this should say rejected, all of this heading content that's duplicated on every page can just be included automatically as we build a JavaScript application. So let's see, we've got accepted, we've got apply, and we've got test wizardry homepage. All right, that's looking good. And we've got our apply script. Now, next thing is, oops, we want to refresh our pages. Actually, they should have been refreshed. Oh yeah, we've got some formatting fixes to do. So let's set everything into a container that has a maximum width and is centered but left aligned. So centered on the page, but block aligned to the left. And I don't exactly remember how to do that, but we'll take a stab at it. And instead of calling it class equals centered, let's call it class equals page. We could call it main content or whatever. So every page, we want to start with this div class in the body. And this is just kind of a wrapper class. And this is a common strategy that every element in the page is going to be wrapped with this wrapper class. And then we can get a beatbox or something. I don't know. So this wrapper class is a container for our page, which is going to tell us how wide we want it to be and that we want it centered. So first we get it, and then we'll style it. And we'll indent everything else here. Indentation is irrelevant for HTML, but it helps people reading. And our rejected page. And having the correct indentation definitely helps to spot errors, such as you don't have a closing tag for something, and it's all right, let's look at our pages. Our home page, we've got this all screwed up. Our apply page and our accepted page, and let's also bring up our rejected page. All right. Not very interesting. Once we get this looking good on the web, then we'll check our mobile interface as well. And we've still got to worry about using cookies and creating more pages, which is what I said we were going to do today. All right, so we need to go to our style sheet. Let's create a page or a dot page object, right? I like to start off with something that indicates that I've got everything, right? I can use a border, and I'll do something like 4px dashed yellow, just to be weird, so that I remember, hey, this is not something I want on my page. So there's a couple things. There's a little bit of border around the edge, and we probably don't want that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to my body element. So the body is the main element, and there's a margin of, I don't know, 5 pixels or something, margin of 0. And now you can see when I did that, this yellow line went all the way around to the edge and actually over the edge on this one. Okay, so the yellow border represents everything. And then there's one more thing. What I want to do is I want to do the box sizing is border box. Now, normally when you have a size for something, it calculates the size based on the content, not counting the margin, the border, or the padding of that element. This is just one way so that we know that everything up to the border, in other words, including this 4 pixels of yellow box, is going to be included within the element, as well as any padding. So that's the next thing we want to do, is we want to have some padding here, right? So let's do padding. Now you can see we have padding, and if we do padding, if we do 4 REM, so relative, that makes it quite a big amount of spacing. Maybe we want to try 2 letters of spacing, and relative to the root font size, which is something like, what did we have, 20 pixels. So relative, so 2 times 20 pixels would be 40 pixels of padding right here. And it's nice to do everything relative, because then you can adjust it in one place and everything will go different. So in other words, if I take my body font size, the font size for the whole body, the root, and I change this to 10 pixels, well, both the text is going to get smaller and the padding is going to get smaller. And you can see that. All right. So then what we want to do is we want to have the padding above and below, where we've got some extra padding here. I think we might have that on the bottom or on the body or somewhere. Somewhere we've got extra padding here. Oh, that's probably the heading one. But we don't want that extra padding. We just want it to be normal. So what we want to do is we want the padding to be, the padding on the top and bottom to be 1 REM. And on the bottom. So what I'm doing is here, I'm saying the padding everywhere is 2, and then I'm overriding, and it's cascading down from the more general to the more specific, and the last shown. For instance, if I move this up here, the general padding is going to override, and you can see the padding at the top here became higher. So it's cascading down in the order of assignment. But there's another way to describe your padding, and that's that you can describe your padding. So you can describe your top padding. I want my top padding to be 0 REMs or pixels or whatever. I want it goes top, right, bottom, left, I think. We'll see. 4 REM, and then we'll try and make this big, 10 REM, and I don't know, 8 REM to make it obvious. And we can see here that we've got a wide left one. So let's change our left one back to 2. Let's change our right one to 2 as well. And let's change our top and bottom to 1. Oops. So top, right, left, bottom. All right. Now, there's even a shorter way of doing this. We can do top and bottom 1 REM and left and right 2 REM. And that's kind of the way I like to do it. Usually your top and bottom you want to be the same and your right and left to be different. Anyway, or your right and left to be the same, but maybe different than your bottom. So that's how I'm doing it. Top and bottom are 1 and right and left are 2. All right, so we've got our styling. We've got it, we got text align center, right? Now the whole page is centered, but we want it centered in the page, but only a maximum width. So let's say max width. Now I could do 50 pixels. Well, that's going to be too skinny. Let's say 500 pixels. But on our mobile device, it's only going to be like 385 pixels. So that's interesting. But we want to we don't want to waste all this when we're looking on a big page. We just want it to shrink when it's smaller. So we can say max width 800, and that looks pretty good. But we're guessing here. We can also specify REM, so relative M sizes. We can say something like 50 REM. And that looks, you know, it's probably about whatever the pixel size is times 50. And it doesn't exceed that. But maybe what we want to do is we want to say 50 CH for characters. And that's too small. Let's say our maximum is 100 characters. That's a pretty pleasing width. All right. But the problem is here that we've got the characters are wider here than here. So it's wider here than there inside this box, which is, I think, 65 characters we set. So what we probably want to do is stick with our relative EMs. And like I said, I think 65 is usually a pleasing width to read. And we'll go to our letter. And let's change this max width from 65 characters to 65. Well, actually, we can center that. So the next thing we want to do is, well, let's make our max width a little smaller to 50 rem. There we go. That's a little bit better. But now let's go ahead and left align the things in here. I'm probably going to have to Google how to do this. But what I want to do is I'm probably going to want to use, what's it called, Flexbox. So here's what I want to do. Center block, but align contents to the left. And okay, so we want margin auto and text line left. If this guy's right. And there we go. So this one's centered, this one's centered, this one's centered, and that's left. And so there we go. We've got to start here. Now let's I didn't even have to use Flexbox to get there. Now it's centered, except for this block here. Good. And all of our pages, they've got a decent looking flow. Uh-oh, our apply page doesn't have our styling. It does have styling now, but we need our send application to look nicer, right? So let's go to our apply page. We've actually got a button. We want to make it a class of button too. Let's look at our dot button. Where's dot button? Do I just have a dot button? I don't have dot button styling. I've got a style for all A's with the border. We don't want it for all. We just want it for dot button. And then we'll have to go through our pages and make each anchor link class button. Well, that doesn't look right. That looks right. Okay, on our index page, a class equals button. Apply now. That looks right. Let's do some other things fun here. Let's make our button, let's make our color be black. Let's make it just kind of a dark gray, 333. And wait, we want our background color to be that, and we want our text color to be white. I can specify that with FFF or with the word white. So there we go. Let's give it a little border radius. 5 pixels. There we go. Our buttons are a little more interesting. And then we can do, here's something funny or fun, button colon. This is a pseudo class, hover. So when we hover over a button, we want to make our background color a little darker. We'll just use white here, and then we want our border width to be a little bigger too. Oops. Oh. And then we need our button visited font color to also, or just color. All right, so now our buttons are dynamically looking pretty. Okay, so this one doesn't look right yet, so we need to go to our apply page. And where's our button? Type equals button, class equals button. So because this is an input and not an A, because this is a button that actually submits a form, what we want to do is we want to add some styling for this that's different. So what we want to do is we want to say input.button as opposed to a.button. We want to have a background color of, what is it, 333. And we want to have a color of white. There we go. We've got a typo in here, so we've got the pound white. That's why that's going like that. Let's start by distinguishing everything from our A from our input. So I think I can grab all of this stuff and apply it. There we go. So we've got our home page. Buttons looking good. On our apply page, send application button is also behaving. The border doesn't look quite right there. Oh, it's just because why isn't the width working? Is it because the max width is 400? We might have to deal with that. That's definitely a different size. And our go-to Diagon Alley. Now let's drop right in here to here and see the style. I'm going to hard code the width. That worked. Why didn't that work for max width? Maybe a button element doesn't take a max width. Input max width CSS. What's wrong here? So input does not respect max width. It's because it's not a, well, I'm specifying that as display block. I guess maybe I need to say width equals 100%. Let's check that out. There we go. Let's actually take this and see if it's actually the same width as the other button. Okay, we've got our apply now. And our send application, yeah, those look like they're the same width. Great. Okay, fun with styling. I hope you guys are having fun watching me stumble around with CSS. But it's good to have a consistent style from the start. So even if we take an extra day to do this, it'll save us time going back and trying to do other things. And on our rejected page, let's also add a link to go back to the start. Now we can just do a class equals button href equals slash, which just means go back to the start. We could put index. And then this page, there we go back to start. And we go back to the index. All right. We got a little bit of styling. And then we send an application. Now you're too young, it says, to go to Hogwarts. And it goes to, oh yeah, I forgot. We ended the day yesterday with this error. So let's go ahead and go back to our apply page. Where's our logic that says if accepted, go to accepted, else go to rejected? Oh, simple. I'm doing a comparison with two equals instead of assigning the value of false to accepted. All right, let's go ahead and start at the beginning and test this out. Let's not let bugs slip in. Harry Potter is a male and he's 12 years old. Your owl flutters off. You're a wizard, Harry Potter, but you're too old to apply to Hogwarts. Sorry, go back to the start. Apply now. Hermione, we'll just say Hermione, female. How old is she? She's 10. You're a witch, but you're too young to apply to Hogwarts. Go back to start. And let's apply. Harry's too old. Hermione's too young. I'm just the right age. My owl flutters off. I'm a wizard. And congratulations. All right, go to Diagon Alley. This link doesn't take me anywhere. That's unfortunate. Let's make it go somewhere. All right, so we'll leave our style sheet open for a minute. Go to Diagon Alley. Well, we need to add a link to Diagon Alley. href equals Diagon alley.html. We click on here and can't get 404. The page doesn't exist, and you can see this in the error message. It says 404 from my web server. Well, that's easy enough to fix. Let's create Diagon Alley. Diagon-alley.html. And then we'll start with an H1. We need a description here. Oh, and we need to grab our boilerplate. So we'll grab everything above here. end our page div. Oops, end our body closing tag and end our HTML tag. Let's try loading this. All right, we've got Diagon Alley. I guess what we want is we want test wizardry to be at the top for H1. And I suppose what we should do on every page here is have test wizardry and then have a heading of where we're at and some visual clues. So we've got test wizardry, Diagon Alley, and what font is this? This doesn't look like the font I'm expecting. I want to inspect just this one element. What is this, an ad? All right, Diagon Alley, the font is EB Garamond or serif. That doesn't look right. What I want to do is I want to know when my font is wrong. So I'm going to go back to, I'm going to use Courier.
I think, yeah, right. We don't have H2 here, as in style.css, you can add that.
So you're right that we don't. H1 specifically says Lumos. H2 style, I could say it's Lumos, but and so now it says it's Diagon Alley, but I want us to do is EB Garamond. And it goes back to that. Maybe that is the actual font. And I'm just not seeing it. So what we should be getting is the style, this link to Google font should load EB Garamond font. But maybe
And
just looking at the medium weight large,
yeah,
this
right.
actually looks about right. So right, if I change this to Diagon Alley, the bold font, I think, in this case, doesn't really look like what we're expecting. It looks better on the thin font. So let's go ahead and rather than bold font, rather than specify the font, because it inherits the font from the body. The default font is EB Garamond. But what I want to do is I want to say font weight is 400. And 400 here is regular. I could just put normal. So now I go here and yeah, that's more obvious. And on my Diagon Alley, I've got, that looks a little easier to interpret. All right, so Diagon Alley. I said we're going to create more pages. Let's do this in the last few minutes. So I'm going to search for Wiki Diagon Alley. And let's learn what's in Diagon Alley. As you can see, I've been to this page before. There is, of course, the first place where we need to go. If you remember in the first Harry Potter book or movie, the first place you needed to go was, I'm just going to create a list of places. Now I'll create some text, right? I'll start with the text. You are whisked off to a seedy alley somewhere in London, but not the modern city you are familiar with. It looks like something out of a medieval movie set. I don't know. We'll come up with better wording, and I'm welcome to it. With ancient buildings and oddly dressed people. Let's add another paragraph. Signs over many shop windows. I'm trying to come up with some text right here. It's sign, not signed, signs over many shop windows indicate the name, but not always the purpose of each mysterious establishment. And yeah, we want to keep that colon, I think. And then we'll have a list, right? So we'll start with a list. A UL is an unordered list. An LI is a list item. We'll start with Gringotts Bank. That's clear what that is. And then there is, let's see. Oh, there's Ollivanders. Where are the known will play? All right, Ollivanders. I don't even know how to pronounce this. Ilops Owl Emporium. Anyone who's a Harry Potter expert? Anyone know how to pronounce that? Let's see. Let's just add a couple others. Flourish and Blots. That is the bookshop. Madam Malcolm's. Quality Quidditch supplies. Now, as everyone knows, I'm sure, first years can't play Quidditch, but a player might not know that, and they could spend some time investigating some shops that aren't going to be useful. And let's also add that ice cream parlor. What was that? Florian Fortescue's. So our players may end up wasting time and money in some of these shops where they don't need to go. And there's also Madame Malkin's, but for those of our more well-to-do, we might also include, we should add Slug and Jiggers, but we might also include Twilfit and Tattings, a more expensive clothing shop. If they happen to go in there and they need to get their wizarding robes, they might end up spending all of their money on a robe that while it might be more prestigious to wear, it's no more functional than Madame Malkin's robes. And we might also add things like the secondhand wood shop. But the last thing I want is the apothecary. What is it called? Slug and Jiggers. All right, so now we go to Diagon Alley and we have all these different lists. Well, our list is all messed up. Let's make our unordered list. Now, I like to start off in my HTML, messing with my style, and then moving it into my style sheet in general. So what I want to do is text align left. There we go. And if you remember, we did margin auto. Let's add a border to see. We'll make this one blue. Oh, I missed my semicolon. All right, so our width, we want to change our display, I think, to inline block. There we go. We can remove our border now. I like to make borders that I'm using just for figuring out what's wrong with my output. I like to make them ugly, you know, blue borders and yellow dash borders and whatnot. We can probably get rid of our yellow dash border as well. Or rather, instead of getting rid of it, let's make it more interesting. Let's make it something that has a little more Harry Potter flavor. Oops. I need to move the zoom stuff out of. There we go. So what do you think about making it a nice tan or something? Something a little more subtle. I don't know. That's no better, is it? Maybe slightly better. Let's make it a little more subtle. Well, we'll probably remove it. Anyway, so let's go ahead and wrap up for today. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, you know what? We never got to cookies. I'm going to go ahead and go a little bit over and talk about cookies. Cookies are a way to store information. So the last thing we want to do today, which was really the first thing I wanted to do, was when we apply, we enter our name. And it says, Dear Mr. Ms. Surname. So let's go to our apply. First, we're going to need a first name and last name, right? So let's add that. Well, I was going to say we could automatically divide our string along that. Let's not get into that right now. But in the accepted, what we want to do is we want to know the name here so that we can put that. So we need a script that says when we load this page to get that information. So we can do var name equals, we'll start with having it hard coded. And now what I can do is I can insert a script right here that will say, now my script is document.write. This is going to write within this element in the document. It's going to write, what we want is we want player surname, right? We'll change this to player surname. And now it says, Dear Mr. Ms. Potter. Well, we also need to change this. So let's, we'll create a span element and we'll call this one. This is, well, we'll give it an ID, not a name. We'll call this one, what's what's a better word than title for the person?
Person title.
Yeah, player title. Yeah, I was trying to think. There's probably like a legal term besides title for Mr. or Doctor. Salutation. And then what we'll do is we'll do the same thing. Document right, player title. And then same thing, we'll create another span element. And the reason we'll do this is because in the future we can then refer to this element and change it dynamically. Document right, player title and player surname. So let's see what we've got. Okay, so we've got object HTML span element. Dear object Potter, we don't want that. So what we need to do is we need to define a variable for player title. And in this case, it's Mr. Dear Mr. Potter. So we're dynamically doing that. What we want to do is we want to change it based on what we had in the other page. And the way we're going to do that is with cookies. So like I said, I'm just going to look at how to get a cookie. So you can create a cookie by setting it here. You can do things like you can set an expiration, you can set cookie domain and the path it applies to. But what we want to do on our other page, on our application page, so we go back to apply, and here we will put the player name, right? So before we route it, what we can do is we can actually do it all the way up here, right? We can document dot cookie equals now here's what I want to do. I want to pass just the player. Well, no, let's go ahead and player player name is going to be equal. So what I'm doing is I'm setting this string value because a cookie is really just a string of text plus player name. So I'm saying player name equals Harry Potter or Aaron Evans or whatever. All right. I just need to look up how to do it. I don't want Stack Overflow. Okay, that doesn't tell me. That doesn't tell me. I don't have permission to access that. 2011 ASP. I think I might just be able to do document cookie equals player name equals player name. Okay, yeah, you just do it again. Okay. I thought so, but I didn't know if you comma separated them or whatever. It's been a long time since I've done this manually. Player, gender, and we might as well save the age too, right? All right, I know we're out of time, so if you guys got to go, I understand. But I'm going to try and get this going. So we're setting the cookie in each of those. And then what we want to do is go back and get the cookies. function to get the cookie. So we can do things like set the date, but we don't care about that right now. To get a cookie, what we do is we do cookie name equals, so we just get the cookie, right? Where is document cookie? And then we've got to split. Okay, so it's separated by semicolon. That's how you do it all in one line. All right, so then we've got document cookie. And so what we're going to do here is let's look at our cookie and accept it. So we're going to go here. We're going to go back to the beginning, go through the flow, apply now. Harry Potter, we should make those bigger as well. Those input areas. Your owl flutters off. You're a wizard. You've been accepted. Let's look at our console. Here we have player name equals Harry Potter. This is our cookie. Player gender equals male. Player age equals 11. So we could actually just grab this function here, right? So what we're doing is we're splitting it at the semicolon. And we're getting the substring of the so we're going to need to do a little magic, well, a little coding, I should say, or maybe I should say magic, right? Where is my output? There we go. So here's the text I need to parse. I'm going to create a function called get cookies. And I need to parse this text. So what first we're going to do is we're going to split it. Var cookies equals document cookie dot split on semicolon. And then we'll do this step by step. All right, and our cookies are going to still exist, right? So I'm going to reload this page. Failed to decode fonts. Oh, so we've got an issue with the font. But I've got it locally, so that's cool. Get back here. I'm going to reattach this to the side of my screen so that I can see what's going on. Failed to parse table. I don't know what that means. Failed to decode downloaded font. That's just a red herring. Oh, I'm not calling my function. That's what I need to do. And then what I need to do is call get cookies, right? So add event lister. What is it? I don't memorize. I Google. So what I want to do on the page load, I want to, oh, it's DOM content loaded, I think. Oh, it just load. And then I call my function get cookies. All right, so now we should be able to see this. All right, I'm just going to add a button here. Sometimes you do things the ugly way. All right, so good. We've got here 3 elements. Now we've got some spaces. So what we want to do is we want to trim the spaces. Then we want to split it. I'm doing things a little bit fancy here just to get it done quickly. And where was that example? So we're getting the cookies. We're splitting on the semicolon. I don't. Oh, here we're going. Substring of 1 for space. But what we're actually doing, we're doing it somewhat differently. We're splitting it on the equals sign. So what we're doing is we're doing this where here is the manual way of what we're doing. We're taking this text, right? We're splitting it at the semicolon. We're replacing the semicolon, and we're creating 3 strings. As you can see here, I've got 3 strings. We've got this array of strings. Player name equals Harry Potter. Player gender equals male. I need to trim both right and left. I want to make sure that JavaScript right and left trim is just trim. All right, so trims any white space off. So I'm trimming the white space, and then I'm splitting on the equals. And I'm going to need to create a I'm thinking in Java streams, not in JavaScript. So I'm going to do this in a loop. For our cookie in cookies, or how do they do it? Well, I'm looking at trim, not the cookie. Too many tabs. Well, here we go. That's a much better way to parse. But we're doing starts with. What we want to do is we just want to get an array. Our cookie, I actually don't want to do for each because I want to return. Interesting, I've never heard of the every. Oh, it's just checking. Check. I don't want to check if they pass the test. I want to. What I would really think of doing here is I would do a map. This is probably going to tell me, don't do this, do a map. reduce, but I don't want to reduce on a map. This is probably boring for you guys, or humorous. I don't want to reduce, I want to map. Yeah, this is what I was trying to avoid. For in or versus for of. Loops through the values of an iterable object, loops through the properties of an object. I'm trying to do this as explicit as possible. Destructuring is a way to return multiple elements. So what I want to do is split this. All right. This is weird. Why does it have? Oh, there's a typo here. Let's just check this out for now. Why doesn't my button show up with my button? Okay, it does now. Undefined, undefined. It's not working. Undefined, undefined. Okay. So what I want to do is console log cookies. So it gives me an array. Let's just do this one step at a time like I should. Okay, so this isn't giving me anything. That's what I thought of. So I've got player name equals Harry, player gender equals male, player age. All right, and then what I want to do is to split it on the equals. And first I want to trim it. Try that out. I've got all, oh, I'm not doing anything after that. And then what I want to do is I want to console.log key comma value. So it should just put a space in between them. Get cookie. Yep, so we've got player gender equals male. I've got the key, I've got the value. I've got the key, I've got the value. Okay, so then I can so I'm going to create an empty object literal. That's what the curly braces mean. And then I can do player dot key equals value. And then I can do console.log player. I should have just done this from the start. Get cookies. Okay, so now I have an object called player with player name, player gender, player age. And this should probably be called character instead of player. But we'll worry about that later. Okay, so now we've got this and this. What I want to do is all right. Now every time I refresh it, it works. Okay, so I've got the event DOM content loaded. That's going to get my cookies. Let's actually change this to get player info. And then we can create another function called get player info. So when it loads the page, that's what this on add event listener DOM content loaded. JavaScript is event driven. That does the same thing as body on load equals, which is another way to trigger it. And I put this button in here just to like manually check it. I'm going to delete that button in a minute. All right. Oops, I've got an error somewhere in here. Oh, it's not doing anything. So I'll call this cookies. Actually, I'm just going to get player. Naming is one of the hardest things in programming. Looking stuff up is the other hard part. Then what I want to do is I want to, in these elements, I want to set the player title. So what I want to do is create another function called function set player title. I'm going to pass the title. Actually, I'm going to call that salutation. Document get element by ID. What I want is player title. I'm going to change that to player salutation. So I can just change it to salutation. And I'm going to remove this string. I'm going to put Mr. / Miss. So now, dear Mr. Miss Potter. Let's spell it out. Dear Mr. / Miss Potter. Let's fix this. So we've got our player, we've sending cookies. And what we want is we want player. And then we can reference this by, what do we call this? We've got player gender. Cannot read player gender of undefined. Okay, so let's start here. Console.log player. See if we've got our player object, which should be the same as we're seeing on the other one. That's not working. Oh, because it's not returning. And we've got our player is this object with name, player gender, player age. We'll clean up that object later, but we're returning the player from our cookies, right? We'll just return cookies. And this is going to be more generic. So document cookies split. We can actually remove this here. We'll remove some of this debugging output. We'll be consistent in our naming. We want var, not let. Let is the modern way of doing it. It avoids problems with this and with hoisting of variables. That's all I'm going to say for now. We're going to remove this and that. So what we're doing is we're just creating this variable called cookies. We're splitting the document cookies string. Then we're trimming and splitting that again to give us a key value and adding to the cookies object, an object with the key of key and the value of value, and returning that. All right, so let's see. We've got get player info. We've got cookies couple. Okay, player is not defined because I just changed it. Okay. There we go. We've got our get cookies working good. And let's be more specific here. That's not the salutation. That's the player gender. And what we want to do is we want to say if player gender equals male, we'll define the salutation as Mr. If player, else if player gender equals female, salutation equals miss. And what we want to do is, let's go ahead and say, we also want to get some other things. What I want to do is wizard or witch. And all this code is going to need to move out of my HTML file. But what I can do is I can set this information here. And so I can do document.cookie. That's right, we need the equals as part of the string. So what I'm doing is I'm setting document.cookie. Player, just wizard or witch, I guess. Do player, wizard or witch, because we might want to separate that out. Wizard or witch plus like I can see making this an array or an object in the future to parse that out. So now we're parsing this stuff once, and so it should be in our cookies. And now we can set player title. We want to get we want to set the salutation, right? So we want to set salutation. We want to get the element by the ID, which is salutation. And then what we want to do is we're going to do element set inner text to equal salutation. And then the last thing we do is we call set salutation. Let's add some logging. Okay, we've got an error. Line 60 and line 80, we've got errors. Line 60, okay, that's obvious. Line 80, did I delete player surname here? No, I didn't. Click on that. Reference player gender is not defined on line 40, on line 69. We've got player gender defined here. Oh, we need to reference it as cookies.playerGender, right? Accepted line 45. Oh, again for female. There we go. Now it automatically says, "Dear Mr. Potter." We can close all these extra windows that told me how to do what I probably could have figured out quicker. Let's start this process over and try it. Apply now. What's my name? Hermione Granger. Female. She's 11. Send application. Your alpha letters, you're a witch. Congratulations. And it says Miss instead of Mr. automatically. Okay. So now we can, we'll do a couple of things of cleanup. Or move that button. Dear Miss Potter. Oh, well, that's the next thing we need to handle. What we need to do is we need to set surname. All right. Set surname. We need to get the surname, which is the last name. So what we want to do is if cookies dot player player name
Is there any way to save this data instead of cookies?
There is. You can use local storage, and what we'll actually do eventually is we will use a state management system for our JavaScript framework. I'm showing you the really low level, boring way of doing it. In truth, did you have any suggestions?
Okay. No. I was wondering if we can use the local storage.
Yeah, local storage would work. It works very similar to cookies.
Yeah.
Okay, so then the other thing I need to do is I need to split out the first name and last name, right? So I'll go ahead and var first name and var surname. So what we'll do is we'll do var actually what we can do is first name surname equals cookies dot player name dot split on space. So this is only going to account for a name with one space. If your name is John De La Cruz, it's going to assume your first name is John and your last name is De La Cruz. I believe you can specify split into two variables only. I think I want a 1 on the end. Let's see the arguments for split. Yeah, the limit. So if your name is John Paul Frenchy, it's going to assume that it's only going to do one split. And then what we want to do is it's also console.log first name and surname. And of course, if you're Chinese or Japanese and your last name is first, we're not quite internationalized yet. Let's we've got an error. Player surname is not defined. Okay. Where are we saying, what line is that on? 93. Oh, well, that's because we are and what we're doing is we're having some default content here that's being replaced. So so we've got dear Mr. Miss surname, invalid left hand assignment. So I've got an equals going wrong here on line 42. Okay. Let is not defined. Oh. Uncaught error on line 40. Oh. Where are we doing our other split? Maybe it doesn't allow destructuring at this point. Here's what we can do is we can do names equals cookie.split. And then what we can do is I'm going to do first name and last name instead of surname. All right, so we're getting close here. We've got Miss for Hermione Granger. What I want to do is set surname. I'm just checking last name. It's not calling it reference. Surname is not defined. Set surname, last name. You can change that back for consistency here. Set surname is undefined. Let's log the name. This is where getting the debugger would be useful. Oh, did I just set the name of the player to Hermione? No, Hermione Granger. Okay, so now we've got to set surname Granger. Dear Miss Surname. Okay, now we are ready to, what we want to do is find the element and replace it. Now, I haven't explained what I'm doing here, and part of that is because I had to figure out how to do it myself. Okay, we're still not getting it. Type error, cannot set property in your text of null. Get element. Oh, because I didn't give this name, this an ID. This is surname. There we go. Dear Miss Granger. We finally got it working. 40 minutes later. All right. So we've got a lot of JavaScript mess in here. There's a lot of cleanup we could do. But let's recap what we're doing here with the cookies. We get a string, which is a list of all the cookies with document cookie. That's what this string is. Player age equals 11, semicolon, space. We've got, I guess it's not setting wizard or witch. Player salutation is miss. Oh, do I have a typo here? Wizard or witch wizard. Oh, yeah, it looks like I do have a typo. Player age, player wizard or witch wizard. Oh, that must have been from in the past. Like, so if I clear my cookies, that'll go away. All right, we can go to clear browsing data, but what I want to do here is more tools, developer tools. I guess I was already in there. Well, let's go back here. I want to show you where the cookies are at. How can I search it? All right. I know it's in the dev tools. I don't know how to find it. I thought it used to be in a tab over here. More tools. All right, let's read about it on the internet. Open Dev Tools application manifest. They moved it around again. Okay. Storage expand cookies. That's
If you go before memory, so you
Yeah.
have element console, resource, performance, memory after memory.
Yeah, after memory. I'm clicking here and it's expanding application. Oh, application. There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you. They try to make it hard to find because they don't want people to know that they're tracking you. So here's our cookies. It used to just be a tab right at the top for cookies. Shows you how long it's been since I've got that. And then, you've got like the Vue or the React dev tools, which can give you more information. All right. So we've got player, wizard, or which wizard. So let's go ahead and I think we can just delete all of these cookies. And then if I load this page, it's going to say, Dear Mr. Miss Surname, we are pleased to inform you. So let's go back through one more time, checking out our whole thing, and then call it a day with an extra hour. All right, so what is your name? My name is Aaron Evans. Are you male or female? I'm going to make that a button where you can just click, and maybe I'll just have it say, are you a wizard, are you a witch, or are you a muggle? And then you just click the button. How old are you? I'm 11. Send application. Your owl flutters off. We'll probably remove these alerts and have it within the page itself. You're a wizard, Aaron. Congratulations. You've been accepted, dear Mr. Evans. There we go. Go to Diagon Alley, and we've got our list. We didn't create any of these pages, but we've got a list. Our next step is to create a page for each of these. Probably what we'll do next is just create a page for Gringotts Bank, where we go to the bank and we get some money. And then we'll create Ollivanders, where you can buy an owl, or where you can get a wand. And then Ilops or Elops, or however you pronounce that, you can get an owl or a rat or a cat or whatever familiar you want. And see a typo there, flourish and blots. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to correct flourish and blots, save that, and call it a day. Bit of a marathon session. So I've stopped my web server. I want to git commit. Well, I want to add all the pages that I've added. Git commit -a. All right, and then what I want to do is I want to say added. So here's another mistake. I've added Diagon Alley page. I added or clean up display, right? Clean up and standardize styling. And then the other thing I did was to, new file node modules. We need to squash that right now. I need to get to my git ignore file. And I need to add my node modules directory. I don't want to add all these binary things to my repository. So, and this just comes from when I installed live server locally, which I didn't mean to do. All right. So what I want to do is added formatting and style consistent. My brain's fried. How do you spell consistent? On all pages. Added Diagon Alley page, and then added cookies with functions to get player or to pass player info to acceptance page. Note, this needs lots of cleanup. I'm going to push this to my repository, and then maybe I'll unleash this on some testers. What we should do is, I've been clicking through and doing a lot of manual testing. Maybe it's time to start writing a Selenium test tomorrow. So now we can see if we go to netlify.com, and I just go in an incognito window because I've got a different account for Test Wizardry than for my main user. And I guess I need to log into GitHub first. All right, so let's check our Test Wizardry game. Added formatting and style consistent. It's with an E, isn't it? And note, this needs a lot of cleanup. We go here, we log in with GitHub to Netlify, and I believe it's set to automatically publish, but if not, we will check it out. Your site is deployed.
Why are we using Netlify and not GitHub pages?
Did you say why?
Yeah.
Just because that's what I chose.
Okay.
But yeah, GitHub pages works just as well. At least for the use we're going to have. Right, I could have whatever .github pages and then have a CNAME for that. But
yeah, just asking. I wasn't the last session, so I'm just asking now. So, yeah.
All right. Yeah, I thought about GitHub pages, but since I use Netlify for a lot of things, then I've got it. So we've got it here. We've definitely got our new formatting. We've got our application. We can set our values on the public. Owl flutters off. You're a wizard, Harry Potter. Congratulations, dear Mr. Potter. Go to Diagon Alley. All right. Looks like we've got it all. We've got our fonts. We've got our styling. Everything looks good. Like I said, that was a bit of a marathon session, almost 2 hours, but we got something done. We got the cookies working, as well as we cleaned up the style, which was something I hadn't planned to do today. I did a lot of coding without a lot of explaining today, and the code isn't pretty. I also did a lot of looking up information just to figure it out, when it turned out that trial and error was easier than reading Google search results to try and figure out what I wanted to do to parse the cookies. There's probably a lot of libraries available for do that, and most of your existing JavaScript frameworks, whether it's React or whatever, you're going to have some tool for handling state that will be invisible to you as a user, whether it's using cookies or local storage or some other mechanism. It'll probably have fallback on different methods in your JavaScript framework. But I just wanted to show the low-level way of doing this with cookies first. And so that's our lesson for today. I don't know if it's more of a lesson for you or a lesson for me, but I hope you got something out of it.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Thanks, Aaron.
All right.
Thank you.
I hope that even if I'm not teaching people that I'm at least showing them that the trial and error, you know, maybe there's a little humor in watching me rediscover things that I've forgotten or figure out how to do things I don't. One thing that I thought would be interesting is to just have like a coding session where as a small group we can like code together, pair programming, and just building things. And we might even split up and divide and say, okay, one person's going to work on the front end, one person's going to work on the back end, or we might split up into a couple pairs, picking a project and, you know, have a couple people working together and having a conversation. I think that might be interesting. I'd watch the equivalent of, I guess, like a Twitch stream of people programming instead of people playing video games. Anyway, have a good time, everyone, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah. Thanks,
See
Harold.
you.
Yep, bye.